Welcome everybody to Cinema Royale. I am Travis Hopson of Punch Drunk Critics, and this is the official podcast of the Punch Drunk Critics. And joining me this week is my good friend Karen Peterson of Citizen Dame, the Citizen Dame podcast. I can spit it out. It's early on a Sunday for her anyway. It's kind of midday for me. Which since I've been playing video games all day, I guess it's still kind of early. I don't know. I haven't really done anything yet. But anyway, we are talking The Little Mermaid today. Disney's anticipated remake of the classic movie. I don't know. I guess it's anticipated.
For some people.
For some people, it is. When I did my review of this, and I've been talking about it all week, of course, I told people this was more of a challenge for Disney than I think for most adaptations, because this is, I think, their most beloved film. Like, I don't know if there's one that people like more than the original Little Mermaid. So to really please people with this movie was going to be tough. And the question I always get when it comes to any of these movies, Karen, and I'm going to ask you to answer it. Does this movie need to exist?
I'm going to answer that question with another question. Does any movie need to exist?
No, they do not.
I love movies. I'm so glad we have them. But I mean, I hate that question that people throw out, because the reality is that no movie needs to be made.
Yeah. I started off my review with that question. It's like, why? Because I got it 100 times about this movie.
Oh yeah, they ask it every time.
Why does this movie need to happen? Why is he here? And I'm like, money. I mean, it's like that's seriously the only real answer.
When it comes to the Little Mermaid, though, the question of does this movie need to be, does it need to be here? Did Disney need to remake this? I mean, the reality is they're remaking all of their animated classics, and it was just a matter of time before they got to this one. And when I think about whether I liked it or not, which we'll get to in a minute, but I think about that Super Bowl commercial where they just, or maybe it was just a TikTok, I can't remember now, it's been a long year, but where it was just a bunch of little girls, particularly little Black girls, seeing Ariel for the first time and just sobbing. Yeah. And I just thought, this movie does need to exist for them.
Yeah, that was ultimately the conclusion that I came down to was, look, the story is the story. The story doesn't get worse. In fact, I think it works just as effectively as before. The story is a really great story. But the thing for me was young girls being able to find their own Ariel. Look, we all have our movies. Look, these movies that we grew up with, there's too much nostalgia in them to really kind of, we're never going to like the remake better than we like the original. Okay, which is just we grew up with these films, but the next generation has the right to have their own version of these stories too. And most people aren't always going to be able to go back and find the original version. They deserve one that speaks to them. And so I like that this movie exists for that reason. So I'm happy that it's here, whether or not I think it's as good as the original or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So give me your thoughts on The Little Mermaid now that we've gotten that part of it out of the way. What are your thoughts on The Little Mermaid?
I was a little bit nervous going into it because I had seen some released video and photos, and it just looked like this isn't the vibrant Little Mermaid that I was expecting. So I was very pleasantly surprised when I sat down to watch the movie, because it actually is. It's very beautiful. It's really bright and colorful, and I had a lot of fun with it. It definitely, for me, isn't as good as the original cartoon, but for some very specific reasons and some not so specific reasons. But I thought it was a really fun movie. I thought Halle Bailey was phenomenal. She knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
And I think she's surrounded by mostly a really good supporting cast as well, which just really makes this, if they're going to do these live action movies, at least give us good performers that we can be excited about. And they did that here.
I agree. I think Halle Bailey she's really a showstopper in this. Her performance of Part of Your World, I thought, was just amazing. Near the beginning of the film, I thought she was great. And I really liked I thought Melissa McCarthy as Ursula was fantastic. She's clearly having a lot of fun doing this. And she's got some pipes, man. She's got some, she can sing. She killed it in that song she's got. I love villain songs. So
and And Poor Unfortunate Souls is actually my favorite from the original show or
Yeah.
the original film. And it was actually funny because a couple years ago I was talking to Alan Menken for one of the other
As
adaptations.
you
He's the
as
one
you
who did all the
do.
music. Yeah,
As you
just
do.
chatting with Alan, who, by the way, is one of the happiest Disney employees I've ever met. And if you've ever met a Disney employee, they're all pretty happy.
Right.
And we were talking about The Little Mermaid, and he was like, I bet I can guess what your favorite one is. And he was like, I think it's Poor Unfortunate Souls. And he was absolutely right. It is.
Just because
And
everybody knows you're a heel at heart. I mean, everybody
it's
knows that about Karen Peterson. So
it's true. That's just
yeah.
how I roll.
Yeah.
But what I loved about Melissa's performance is that she's definitely channeling Pat Carroll, who played Ursula in the animated version, but
Mhm.
she doesn't copy her or mimic her. It's very much like she's paying homage to this character, to this performance, and also making it her own at the same time.
No, I totally agree. And when you get somebody like Melissa McCarthy, who for the most part plays characters that are happy, it's always
Mhm.
interesting to get to see them play characters like this, where they get to just they always like really relish it, and
Yeah.
she's clearly doing that, and she's really a blast.
Oh yeah.
What did you think about some of the original songs? Now, this was a point of contention for a lot of people in our neck of the woods here. For the most part, I felt they're they didn't really stand out to me, with the exception of one, which is of course Scuttlebutt.
Hmm.
Now, I personally I enjoyed it. Now, I can acknowledge that it kind of does not feel like it fits. Get down. Sorry, my cat was on something he's not supposed to be on. I can acknowledge that it does not really feel like it fits with the rest of the songs in the movie. But in terms of just getting the chance to hear Daveed Diggs and Aquafina tag teaming on a rap, you know, I I,
Yeah.
I just couldn't. I could not enjoy it. I did.
I'm never going to be mad about somebody giving Daveed Diggs a rap in anything, whether
Right.
it's a movie, on stage. That's, I mean, how do you just,
Yeah.
you've got him right there. How do you not do it?
Right. But I heard a couple of groans in our screening, and I was like, really? Come on.
Yeah. And I think that that has a lot to do with the fact that the song itself is just okay. It does stand out as like, it doesn't fit in with the rest of
Yeah.
the tone, or style, but and I saw a lot of other people online complaining about it too, critics complaining about it too, but I was just like, you know what? It's This is a movie for kids, and kids are gonna love that.
Yeah. That was fun.
As far
Um,
as some of the other songs, though,
yeah.
and this ties into my overall opinion about one very important character, and that is Prince Eric, who I
Oh
thought was
yeah. I was about to
boring
get to
as
him.
hell. Sorry.
He's super dull. I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh, so boring. And his song, the lyrics of it are actually really good, but the way that it's performed, it's like, why are you rushing? What is the big old hurry? Like, let's enjoy this moment. And it just felt like they were just trying to rush through a song just to have it in there. And
Yeah.
so it just didn't work.
Yeah, there were laughs in our screening, and when his song came on, it felt like too much too soon for him, for that
Mhm.
character. And one of those laughs might have been mine. But I just kind of felt like, well, the music was super, like the music had like no personality either to it. It
Yeah.
felt very, very flat. But also, and no offense to Jonah Howard King, who I'm sure is lovely. Because
Maybe.
I actually think Eric is better written in this movie than he is in the original. I think he's written really well in this. He actually has something going for him other than just being handsome. He's
Yes.
courageous, and they share an outsider trait amongst their families. Her with Ariel. I feel that's good, but he's bland.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's particularly frustrating about that is that everyone I know who likes boys uh always thought Eric was the hottest prince because he is.
Right.
And so to have this just boring, just pasty boy that is just all angsty for reasons.
In a
It-
movie where no one is pasty, almost
exactly.
like
Exactly.
the cultural casting in this movie is wildly diverse, and it's great. And then you
Yeah.
got him, you're like, eh?
Yeah. I mean, it's like you live on an island and you spend most of your time on a boat. What's going on here? Um, but but I agree with you though. I think the character that is written, it does it's so much more interesting than the actor playing it. And it could have been so good with a different performer. And it's funny because I know they were originally talking about casting Harry Styles, and
Right.
I was talking to a friend, and I was like, who her daughter absolutely is obsessed with Harry Styles. And I said, don't tell her, but I think Harry would have been just as bad.
You know, I don't think the Harry Styles thing ever would have worked. And see if
Mm-mm.
you agree with me on this, but it seems like Disney always casts kind of a bland guy to star opposite the woman in these movies because they want the woman to be front and center. And a guy, even if they are playing a prince, like they don't
Um,
want to detract from the female lead in a lot of these movies.
I'm
What was the
trying to think.
last really good prince in one of these live action movies?
I mean, besides Aladdin, who was not actually a prince,
Right. And
I'm trying to even remember who has played the princes, which I guess makes your point.
I was like, I was trying to think about it myself, and I was like, the last
Well,
one I could think
Richard Madden in Cinderella. He was all right.
is okay. I was
Don't be
like, the last
jealous.
one I remember is James Marsden, and it's like Disenchanted or Enchanted, and it doesn't even
He
really
was great. I love James
count.
Marsden,
But it just seems like the guys are always second fiddle in a lot of these movies, and that includes
well,
stuff like
which is
Maleficent and
true.
things like that too. It's like the guy who tends to be in those movies tends to kind of like,
Which is true of the original animated versions in many cases too. I mean, a lot of times the prince just shows up at the end, kisses the princess, and then it's over.
yeah,
The only one who really has a massively active role, I think, is Sleeping Beauty, the prince there, because he actually has to fight the dragon and everything.
right,
But yeah,
yeah.
it's something. But I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but I think it's something with this generation of actors too. I think so many of them are just kind of boring and interchangeable.
Yeah, yeah. I don't disagree with you on that. You were talking earlier about how you kind of worried because you saw a bunch of like you saw still photos of the movie beforehand and stuff like that. For me, it was still photos of Flounder and
Mm-hmm.
Sebastian and all that stuff. People complaining about their mouths and things like that, silly stuff. And I don't disagree. Like still photos, they don't look great.
Yeah.
It looks like it could be like a Sonic the Hedgehog situation, like early Sonic the Hedgehog situation. I mean, terrible. But in motion, I thought they looked pretty good. Actually, I
Yeah.
actually had no complaint with it. I thought, and this is what happens sometimes. Still photos don't give away everything. You got to see how these things look when they're like in practice.
Yeah, I agree. I was nervous, especially about Flounder, because the Flounder we know is just chubby, cute little guy, and to see him be this like skinny fish
Right,
was a
right.
little bit, oh no. But then in what once you see him moving, you see him interacting, it was like you just kind of didn't notice that he wasn't all chubby. He looked like he should look, and it wasn't off-putting at all. I didn't think.
Yeah,
Like I still thought he was adorable.
yeah. Have you ever met or talked to Rob Marshall, the director of these movies?
I have met him very briefly at an event, I think for Mary Poppins, actually. Mary Poppins
Yeah,
Returns.
Mary Poppins
Mhm.
Returns is right.
Mhm.
Is he one of the happy Disney employees? Because he should be. I mean, because I
He
don't know if
definitely was
I
a
don't.
happy Disney employee.
He's got the market cornered on these remakes. Like if they need a big one, they always turn to him.
Hmm.
So if there's anybody who should be happy, it's Rob Marshall.
Well, he really does, and this started with Chicago. He has this eye for big screen musicals, and I would love to see him do an original, like a really original, because Mary Poppins Returns wasn't based on anything like it wasn't adapted from another musical. So all the music was original, even though it was an existing character and story. So that's the closest he's come, I think. But I would love to see him do a real original musical.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I can think of that he did that was really not good was Pirates of the Caribbean. he had no business doing that one anyway. I don't know why they got him to do that. That was what, three on Stranger? Was it on Stranger Tides? Was that the one that he did?
That
The one
sounds
that felt
right.
like it was 8 hours long.
Yeah, that one wasn't good.
I
Let's
think
see.
that was the one it was. I don't know. I
I'm
don't.
checking right now.
They all blend in with me. Honestly, I can't tell any of the Pirates of the Caribbean apart anymore. So
After the first one, they're all pretty much the same. Yeah.
yeah, and I couldn't tell you what the plot of any of them are anymore
It
either.
was on Stranger Tides. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that one felt like it lasted forever. I was like, Jesus
That
Christ.
was the one with Penelope Cruz.
Oh God, yeah. Was it Javier Bardem in that one too?
It was Ian McShane. Oh
And
yeah. Oh yeah. I think Javier Bardem was in it too.
okay, I seem to remind him being under some makeup of some kind.
Or no. Javier was in the last one. Dead Men Tell
Okay,
No Tales or whatever.
okay. Jesus Christ. Anyway, one of the things about the Little Mermaid, I think, and I'm curious to know what you think about how it updates Ariel for today, and not just having casting Halle Bailey, but in terms of like the character herself. You know, the original movie had some issues with agency and things like that. How do you think they handled that in this movie?
I think that it's still a story where that's just inherently a little bit of a problem.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't think that with this story you can really totally get around at that. But I think that they did a good job of making it that trying to think how to explain it. Like her rebellion seemed less intentional and more just like she's just a flighty teenager, which for some reason that just seemed to work a little bit better for me. It was like she wasn't willfully trying to disobey or anything. She's just trying to live her life and make her choices
Yeah.
and I just I don't know. I liked this version of Ariel. I think she was um a little bit more grounded.
I can see that. She was as grounded as a fish person can be.
Yeah, there seems to be more um thoughtfulness to her, I think.
I think that's largely out of the performance. I think
Hmm.
she projects somebody with a lot more self confidence. I think it's something that she projects really well in this. You
She
know,
definitely does. Yeah.
yeah, I think that goes a long way. So she doesn't
Yeah.
seem like just a rebellious kid or something like that who just wants to act out. She seems like she knows what she wants to do, and I think that helps. It's not like Disney was being fairly faithful with this, right? It's not like they did. It's not like that Amazon Prime Cinderella movie from a couple years ago, where
Hmm.
like she like rejects the guy utterly at the end, goes and starts a fashion line or something. I can't remember how it ended.
Right. Yeah.
They didn't do that.
Yeah. I think what it comes down to for me with Ariel in this one is the very specific scene of her meeting with Ursula. And in the original animated version, you get kind of this, you really get the sense that I mean she's thinking about it, she's like, oh, I don't know, but she's very what's the word? Not spontaneous, but very um
Impulsive.
thank you. That's it. And she just kind of does it without thinking. In this, you really see that she's thinking about it and like, is this really a choice I should make? And
Right.
she's kind of taking a moment to really think it through before she gets pressured into signing.
Yeah, she kind of gets
Um,
goaded into it a little bit.
yeah. And that's the thing. I think it gives us a little bit more about both the characters of Ariel and Ursula,
Hmm.
because then Ursula also throws in this like caveat that Ariel doesn't realize she's agreeing to.
Yeah.
So it's like Ursula's even more deceptive, and Ariel really tries to give it some thought and like, I don't know if I should do this or not. So I like that about Ariel.
She should have listened to the talking fish. The talking fish knows, and the talking crab knows, and the talking bird was an idiot. But she really should have listened to the talking animals. They know the way.
If an
You
animal
know?
talks to me, I'm gonna listen.
Animals in every movie, if they talk to you, they know some shit. I mean, it's like you should probably pay attention. That's why I look at
Exactly.
it. Jiminy
Mhm.
Cricket, hey, if Pinocchio would listen, he'd have been all right, you know.
Exactly.
But
You just listen to them. They
it's
know
crazy.
what's up.
They really do. Well, so what are your thoughts on how this is going to perform? Now, I predicted a while back that I think this is going to be the biggest movie of the year in terms of box office, and it may or may not hit that, but I think it's going to be do very well. What are you thinking about how it's going to do?
You
I
mean
don't know.
the biggest
I didn't
movie
see.
overall for the
Yeah,
year?
I didn't see how it started off to this weekend yet. But what are your
Uh,
thoughts?
it's doing pretty well
Okay.
overall at
Okay.
the box office this weekend. It is a Memorial Day weekend opening, which it's really funny because people always kind of have this sense that, oh, Memorial Day is a big box office weekend, but it usually kind of isn't.
Most people go away.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to the movies. And but it's doing well overall. And I think this is one that I think it'll do reasonably good box office numbers, but it's gonna go to Disney Plus pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Maybe it'll make it through a bunch of the summer. We'll see.
Yeah. And if it does well enough, they can start remaking the straight to DVD Little Mermaid movies.
Little Mermaid too.
Oh, God, those movies are awful.
Yeah,
Um,
don't do that. Don't
yeah.
give them ideas.
Oh, they got. It's not as if they're ever going to run out of these movies to remake anyway. They'll always find something. Pretty soon,
Well, and once they finish remaking them, they'll just start making them again.
oh God, yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. I know they will, but Jesus Christ, pretty soon they'll remake the Apple Dumpling Gang, and then I'll be happy. I never thought they would remake Pete's Dragon. Like that
Which,
was a movie I loved as a kid, and it's a great live action movie. It's probably perhaps my favorite of them all. I think it's just
yeah,
brilliant,
it
but
was really good. Yeah.
really good. But and like if you asked me which movies they were going to remake, I never would have said Pete's Dragon would have been on my list. So, but anyway,
Yeah.
The Little Mermaid is in theaters now. Is apparently off to a really good start. I can't wait to see how it does over the long haul. So, Karen Peterson, you got anything coming up that we need to know about? Where can people find your stuff at? Give them all the details.
Oh, you can find me on social media, pretty much all the social media at Karen M.
Still on Twitter?
Peterson.
Still on Twitter?
I peek in on Twitter once in a while. I haven't been tweeting as much, but I've definitely been reading a lot. So
You're not holding any Twitter Spaces campaigns or anything like that, or
no,
making any
no.
announcements on Twitter Spaces? Nothing.
No, I don't do 2 hour Friday Twitter spaces for three people. It's just kind of my thing. I'm weird like
I see.
that, but
Now that almost sounds like an inside jab at somebody. I'm not going to say
I
anything.
don't know what you mean. No, but I do spend more of my time these days on Instagram and Letterboxd, so you can find me on those.
All right. And of course, you can find her on Citizen Dame podcast, right?
Yes, yes. Also there.
Can they get that anywhere? All their podcast outlets.
All the podcast places, yes.
Got Patreon.
We do. Patreon.com/Citizen Dame.
You're part of another podcast too, aren't you? Because didn't I do another podcast with you?
I am, yeah. Wow, look at you. You're plugging me better than I am. The Watch and Talk is my other podcast. So
Yes.
that's a weekly review show. We need to have you back on again.
Yeah, anytime. You guys know I'm happy to hear myself talk. So just send me the invite. I'll be
All right. Sounds good.
Well, Karen Peterson, thanks for joining me on Cinema Royale to talk Little Mermaid, and thanks to all of you who've been tuning in. This has been Cinema Royale. I'm Travis Hopson. You can find me every day at punchdrunkcritics.com, and if you're in the DC area, loads of other places, you know where to find me. All right, thanks again. I will see you guys next time. Goodbye. Thanks for checking out the show. If you like what we're laying down, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest stuff.